is there any telltale signs that's like you could see that this wine, like if you're at shopping and you're like, okay, this wine is definitely probably not good, or like this one is probably good, versus just looking at the price?
Well, anything with an animal on it that's like floating with balloons is a bad wine.
Okay. Animal floating with balloons.
Like a name with like Cupcake or some stupid name like that, right? Or Barefoot, right? Those are not serious wines. But the reality is price and quality are not correlated to each other.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of got to get to know, because I've had killer bottles that were $15. Take them from South America, just killers. And then I've had horrible $80 bottles of wine that were insipid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is why you want to get to know the producer and what's his house style, and then you know what to expect.
Okay.
So if you want to come here when you want to have softer wines or sweet wines, you're disappointed.
Yeah.
That's not who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, because there's thousands and thousands of producers out there, which is why it's always good to start locally, as you can see things and then kind of move out from there.
Based on that. Okay.
And by the way, talking about local, the thing about craft beer, this is the biggest bullshit ever made. Okay? No one ever asks these guys where the hops and barley come from. No one ever come from Washington State. Yet, 99% come from Washington State. They don't grow their own hops or barley here. Heck no. Yet somehow they're craft local guys. The first thing people ask me, did you grow these grapes? Okay? Okay? Hard part's growing shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so those guys get a free pass, or a bunch of losers, those craft beer guys. Try to grow shit around here. That's the tough part. You can tell them I call them losers, by the way. Because they are. They get a free pass. They're not craft anything.
Yeah.
If I bought my grapes from Napa Valley, I would have been run out of town as a fraud. Yet they could do that. Forget it.
Yeah.
Hate those guys.
So is there any, well, I guess like, how does that, because you have one that's a non-vintage, correct?
Yeah, so so in the U.S., what it means is the labeling laws are very strict in the U.S. when it comes to wine, more than any other alcohol. So the law is that in order to call a wine made in the year, it must be 95% that year.
Okay.
So, for example, we made a wine that is only 90% that year, so we had to call it a non-vintage, because the year is known as a vintage. Okay? And so the law says we have to make it a non-vintage. Okay? And so there's 3 levels of the law. 95% must be the same year. 85% must be from the same region. 75% must be the grape.
Okay.
So if I'm calling it Merlot, it must be 75% Merlot. If I'm calling it Merlot from Sonoma, it must be 85% Sonoma. If I'm calling it Merlot Sonoma from 2022, it must be 95%. 75, 85, 90.
Okay.
And if you don't make that 95 threshold, you declare it a non-vintage, which happens a lot. If you don't make the 85% threshold, and if you're in Sonoma, maybe call it California wine. You see a lot of California wines. And if you're below the 75%, you can't call it the name of the grape. You call it like, Happy Elephant Balloons wine.
So is that where blend comes in when they say blend,
Yep.
or is that something else?
Yep.
Okay.
You can blend. If you blend past more than 75%, you got it. You can't call it the name of the grape.
Really?
So it's like another wine's called very fancy wine. It's called a conundrum. All right, it has like 9 different grapes blended in it. It just says conundrum. You don't know the 9 grapes in it. Okay, but if it was 75%, you say Chardonnay.
Would you suggest to steer away from any type of blends or anything like that, or is there some?
Well, I think blends are superior.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So if you look at California, just look at U.S. laws, you can call a Napa Valley cab a cab as long as it's 75% Cabernet. So the percentage of wines that come from Napa Valley that are 100% one grape are 0.
Really?
Just think about it. I mean, if you're cooking, okay, and you want to add a little salt and pepper, but you can't, it's going to make the food taste better. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that profoundly impacts the wine. I mean, we had this event in November you should come to called Assemblaggio, where I blend 5 different wines at a time with you guys. What you see is that a 1-2% difference of another grape could impact the other 98% in ways you wouldn't believe.
Really?
Yeah. But that's a good thing. That's a bad thing. One of the best wines in the world is a wine made in France. It's a blend of 13 different reds. 13
different reds. Wow.
Chateauneuf du Pape.
Okay.
Yeah, which means the new house of the Pope. Yeah.
It has 13. Oh wow.
13 reds, and the percentages change all the time.
Mm-hmm. Because it's gonna be that would be. I feel like that'd be harder to balance, right? Like because I mean, some wines they're roughly gonna be the same or close to the same thing when you get the next year or the next.
And the weather's different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's hotter. It tastes different. Merlot tastes different from last year because the weather's different. Maybe you want a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the joy that I love about this job is the blending to come up with the final components. I mean, and when you have, and remember, when we're saying that this wine tastes good now, it's going to taste different 2 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing that's unique about wine is it's the only alcohol that's alive in the bottle. So what makes bourbon and scotch and whiskey and all this stuff great happens before it's in the bottle, in the barrels and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's in the bottle, it's never going to change because the alcohol is so high. There's nothing going on. What makes it special is the oxygen's passing through the barrel. Okay, wine, the alcohol is 12, 13, 14%. It's changing in the bottle. So what makes it, you can open a bottle of, bourbon whiskey, and it's going to taste the same now. It's going to taste 5 years from now. Wine, radically different. So we're coming up with a wine. We're trying to figure out when our customers drink this wine and what the wine should taste like. That's the art. The rest is science.
Is there like a drop off where you're like, okay, this is too old for a wine, or does that depend on the grape? Or
it depends on and who made it, right? I mean, I had a wine, that was a 23-year-old white wine. It was fantastic. Blew me away.
Mm-hmm.
It was a German Riesling. Couldn't believe it. Fantastic. So it just depends. Depends on, like if you get a wine made by, Buttercup or whatever those stupid wines are, it's not going to make it till next week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's just different.